Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our show, The Importance of Being Earnest. At this time, I'm going to ask you to please silence all of your phones and to put away food and drink. I would also like to remind you, though tempting, flash photography is strictly prohibited. After Act 1, we will be having a 15-minute intermission, and after that, Acts 2 and 3 will follow.
Dr. Chocolate!
That's my cue. I hope you all enjoy the show.
Produce. Get your produce. Produce? Anyone?
The cucumbers, please. Thank you, miss.
Get your produce. Get your produce.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I am very sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression.
Yes, sir.
Did you get the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir. Got them this morning from the market.
Lane, I saw from your book that on Thursday afternoon, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with us, 8 bottles of champagne have been entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint of champagne.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, everyone chooses to drink champagne? I ask merely for information.
Well, sir, I've often noticed that in married households, the champagne is rarely the first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I myself have only been married once, and that was a consequence of a misunderstanding.
I am not much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not very interesting. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Ernest, my dear, how are you? What brings you out into town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses others. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
You've got nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire.
Perfectly horrid. I never speak to them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Of course. Hello! Why all these cups? Why all these cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance? Who is coming over for tea?
Ah, merely Aunt Augusta and Cousin Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you came up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
There is nothing romantic about a proposal. It is romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for those whose memories are so curiously constituted.
There is no use speculating on a subject that is so wildly out of proportion. And please, do not look or touch the cucumber sandwiches. They were ordered especially for Aunt Augusta. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter, too.
Well, you need not eat as if you were to eat at all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already. and I don't believe you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
In the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it's right.
Oh, that is nonsense.
In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Gwendolyn is my cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up this question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? I don't know any by the name of Cecily.
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Right away, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case this entire time? I wish to goodness you would have let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There is no good offering a reward now that the thing has been found.
Well, I think that is rather rude of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes for no matter, for now that I look at the inscription on the inside, I see that the thing isn't yours after all.
What do you mean? Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what's inside. It's a very ungentleman thing to do, to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. More than half of modern culture is about what one shouldn't read.
I didn't come up here to discuss modern culture. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone named Cecily, and you said you don't know anyone of the name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt.
Yes, charming old lady. Very old. Lives at the Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algy.
Yes, but why does your aunt call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear Algy, some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. You seem to think that every ant in the world must be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. Now, for heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does your small aunt call you Uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But Uncle, besides, your name is not Jack, it is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as though your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I have ever saw in my entire life. It's even on your card. Here's one of them. Mr. Earnest Worthing, B4, the Albany.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt calls you dear, sweet uncle. Come now, old boy, you had best have the whole thing out at once.
My dear Algy, you talk exactly as if you were a doctor. It is very vulgar to talk as if you were a doctor when one isn't a doctor. It produces a false impression.
But that is exactly what doctors always do. Besides, I may mention that I have always suspected you to be a secret and confirmed Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I will reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
My dear Algy, there is nothing improbable about my explanation. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who found me and adopted me when I was a boy, made me, in his will, guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect you cannot possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
But where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, Dubois. You are not going to be invited.
I suspected as much, my dear fellow. I have Bunburied all over the country on 2 separate occasions. Now, tell me the whole thing. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, I do not know whether you'll be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the role of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral all the time. So, in order to visit the city, I have pretended to have a little brother named Earnest, who visits the city and gets into the most dreadful of scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth. Pure and simple.
What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying that you're a Bunburyist. You are the most advanced Bunburyist I have ever known.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest, so that you may be able to go up into the town whenever you'd like. I have invented a perfectly invaluable invalid called Bunbury, who acts as a sort of fake brother of mine, so that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I please. Now, Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinarily bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight.
I haven't asked you to dine with me tonight.
I know it is absurdly careless of you. You always forget to send out invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the sort. In the first place, I dined with her last Monday, and once a week is quite enough to see one's own relatives. In the second place, she will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the table. That is not pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks like washing one's own clean linen out in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, I'll naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill off Ernest. Cecily seems a little bit too interested in his city stories, so I'm going to get rid of him. And I suggest you do the same with your invalid friend with the absurd name.
I would never part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you would be glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury leads a very boring life.
That is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she is the only girl I ever saw who I would marry, then I certainly wouldn't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You fail to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
Oh, for heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical.
So that must be Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ring about in such a Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you may have the opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but only if you're serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about their meals. It is incredibly shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I am feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart!
I'm always smart. Am I not, Mr. Wood?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions. I'm sorry if we are a little late. Now, I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches that you promised me.
Oh, certainly, Aunt Augusta. Of course. Good heavens! Lane, where are the cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
You weren't in the morning this market today, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers.
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I already had some crumpets for Lady Harbury. Anyways, I've quite a treat for you tonight. I am going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman and so in love with her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment. But I have just had a telegram from my poor friend Bunbury to say that he has fallen terribly ill. They seem to think that I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think it is high time that this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shally with the question is absurd. I consider his illness morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged. Health is the primary duty of life. So please, speak to Mr. Bunbury and ensure that you will be in good health for my party on Saturday. I need you to run the music.
I will speak to Bob Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, and I think I can say that he will be all right by Saturday. Now, of course, the music is of great difficulty. If one plays good music, people don't talk. If one plays bad music, people don't listen. However, I shall run over the program I've drawn out, if you would be kind enough to accompany me to the next room, and I will show you what I mean.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure that the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow.
Beautiful weather, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
Right. I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back into her room, which I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any other girl.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of this fact. And I often wish that at any rate you had been more demonstrative. To me, you have always been an irresistible fascination. And my ideal has always been to love someone by the name of Earnest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. From the moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, he was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own.
But you don't mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest?
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is, but suppose it was something else. Do you mean to say you couldn't love me then? I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Really, Gwendolyn, I think there are a lot of nicer names out there. Jack, for instance, is a charming name.
Jack? No, there's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill, it produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all without a doubt were more than usually plain. The only real safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing. I adore you. But you haven't proposed yet. Nothing has been said about marriage.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity to spare you any possible disappointment. I think it fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I accept you.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
you know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you have very little experience in how to propose.
My own. I have loved no one in the world but you.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most undignified.
Come on, Mr. Worthing's not quite finished yet.
Finish what, may I ask?
Engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me. You are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on to a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she could be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have some questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. Marriage, Gwendolyn.
Mamma.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing. I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men, though I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory.
I have a country house, with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres. But I don't depend on that for my real income.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Never mind, never mind. That can be cleared up after the fact. You have a townhouse, I hope? A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn can hardly be expected to reside in the country. Are your parents living?
Yes, I have a townhouse, and unfortunately, I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth.
I'm afraid I really don't know. The truth is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer to the truth to say my parents lost me. I was, well, found.
Found?
Yes, the old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of a very kind and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he happened to have a ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time.
Where did the charitable gentleman find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A somewhat large, black, leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in the cloakroom of Victoria Station.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station. Mr. Worthing, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag seems to me to display a departure from the decencies of family life.
I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness, but I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I could produce the handbag at any moment's notice. It's at my house, in the country, in my dressing room. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me? Sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I, or Lord Bracknell, would dream of allowing our only daughter to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For heaven's sake, don't play that ghastly tune, Algy. How idiotic you are.
Did it not go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say she refused you. I know it is the way she is. Gwendolyn is always going about confusing people. I think it is terribly ill-natured of her.
As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Just spoke with Lady Bracknell. Never met such a gorgon. I'm not sure what a gorgon is, but I am certain that Lady Bracknell is one. I beg your pardon, Algy. I suppose I shouldn't talk so negatively about your own aunt.
My dear boy, I love to see my relations abused. It is the only reason I put up with them in the first place.
You don't think there's a chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in 50 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever? I am sick to death of cleverness. Everyone's clever nowadays. You can't walk down the street without meeting clever people. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I would extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? The clever people, of course. By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn about your truth of being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to such a sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
Oh, that is nonsense.
But, by the way, what about your brother? What about the infamous Earnest?
Oh, by the end of the week I shall have gotten rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy.
Yes, but that is hereditary. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better say he died of a severe chill.
You're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary? Or anything of its kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well. My poor brother Ernest is carried off by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
Yes, but I thought you said, wasn't Miss Cardew a little too much interested in your poor brother? Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, Cecily's not a silly romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She's got quite a capital appetite. Goes on long walks, barely pays any attention in her lessons.
I would rather like to meet this Cecily.
I will take very good care if you don't. She is excessively pretty and is only just 20.
Have you told Gwendolyn about your excessively pretty ward who is only just 20?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are certain to be extremely good friends. I'll bet you that after they meet, they'll be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that after they've called each other many, many other names. Now, if we want to get a good seat about this, we'd best go and get dressed. Did you know it is nearly 7?
It's always nearly 7.
Yes, well, I am hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Shall we go to the theaters?
Oh, I loathe listening.
Shall we go to the club?
Oh, I can't bear to talk to people.
Shall we go to the museum?
I can't stand looking at things.
Then what should we do?
Nothing.
Miss Fairfax?
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular I need to say to Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolyn, really, I cannot allow this.
Algie, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that. Ernest, we may never be married! From the look of Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying. Whatever influence I had on Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, there's nothing she can do that can possibly alter my eternal devotion to you.
Gwendolyn,
Your town address in the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
the Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire,
How long do you remain in town?
till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn around now.
Thanks, I've turned around already.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Another glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I will be going Bunburying.
Yes, sir.
Please pack all the dress clothes and the smoking jacket and all the Bunbury suits. I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
Oh, it never is, sir.
You are a perfect pessimist. Pack your bag as well. I could use some traveling company.
I do my best to give satisfaction. I will pack my bags.
Cecily? Cecily! Surely such a boring occupation is the watering of flowers, especially when more intellectual pleasures await you. Come now, your German grammar is on the table. Pray, open it to page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't all very interesting language at all.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as you were leaving for town yesterday.
Oh dear, Uncle Jack is so very serious, so serious. I sometimes think he cannot be quite well.
Cecily, your guardian enjoys the best of health, and the weight in which he stresses education is to be commended. I know no one with a higher sense of duty and responsibility than your Uncle Jack.
I suppose that's why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing already has so many troubles in his life. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother, Earnest.
It's so very lovely if Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometime. I'm sure you have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you would. I would so very love to meet Mr. Earnest.
Cecily, I have no desire to meet him, and I am not in the modern favor of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. It's just not possible. Cecily, put your diary away. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the world's most wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I may as well forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that lives in us all.
Yes, but its usual chronicles are things that have never happened, and sometimes may never happen. Besides, memory is the reason why we all have these bad fiction novels in our head.
Cecily, I myself wrote a bad fiction novel in earlier days.
And was it ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was unfortunately, abandoned.
Oh, I see Dr. Constable coming around through the garden. Dr. Constable!
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, I trust you're well.
Oh, Miss Prism has just been complaining about a slight headache. I'm sure a short stroll in the garden with you will do her some good.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Yes, Miss Prism, I know, but I feel instinctively that you had a headache.
Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke that as metaphor, but metaphor was drawn from bees. Yeah, so it was flying around. Oh, Mr. Worthing has not yet returned from town, I assume.
No, we don't expect him till, Monday afternoon.
Yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. Not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment like his brother Earnest seems to be. But I must not disturb Miss Prism and her lovely people any longer.
Actually, Doctor, I think I may have a headache after all. Walking might do it good. I think I'll take that stroll with you.
Yes, we might go as far as the church and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy textbook in my absence.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, and horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven in from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest is here? How exciting. Did you tell him Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism would be in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Oh, tell Mr. Ernest to come down here and be sure to speak with the housekeeper about arranging a room for him.
Will do, miss. I'll be on my way now, Miss Cecily.
I've never met a real wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. He'll just be like everyone else.
That will be all, Elaine. Please arrange my luggage in my room. And find out what's for supper.
Right away, sir.
You are my adopted cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
And you are my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I am not wicked at all. You really mustn't think I'm wicked. I am, however, rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it. Now, I can't seem to understand why you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon. I know he'd love to speak to you about your emigration.
About my what?
Your emigration? Leaving the country. He's gone to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack do that. He has no taste in neckties.
I don't think you'll require neckties, Ernest. You said you'd be to Australia.
Australia? No, I'd sooner die. That can't be right. London and the country, of course. It's good enough for me, Cecily.
Ernest, are you okay? You're looking a little worse.
That is because I am hungry.
Oh, how very thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is embarking on a new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you, Cecily. You are like a pretty pink flower, Cecily.
Oh, thank you.
Let's grab a bite, why don't we?
I think that you should get married, Doctor. It is said that when a man remains persistently single, he transforms himself into a permanent public temptation. You should be more careful, as very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And often I've heard not even to her.
Wait a second. Where's Cecily?
Did she not follow us from the church?
She most certainly did not.
Mr. Worthing!
My brother.
Still leading his life of pleasure?
More daily debauchery and evening exploits.
Dead. Why, Mr. Worthing, I offer you my most sincere of condolences. Oh, you have the consolation of knowing that you are always the most sincere and generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He was a brother of many faults, but it's a sad, sad blow. He died abroad, in Paris, just got off with the manager of the local inn.
Oh, that's horrible. Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, Miss Prism. Charity. None of us are perfect. Will the interment take place over here?
No. He's expressed desires to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? Well, I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the end of things. Clearly, he was not in the right headspace. However, my sermon on Sunday will be on the meaning of mankind and the wilderness, which can be adapted to almost any occasion, be it joyful or, in the present case, distressing. I have featured at many different events, at funerals, christenings, harvests. In fact, there was this one time I featured...
You mentioned christenings, I think. I suppose you know how to christen all right. I mean, of course, you are continuously christening, aren't you?
Ah, yes, Mr. Worthing. Is there any particular infant in whom you are interested in? I believe your brother was unmarried, was he not?
Yes, but not for any dear child, Doctor. I am very fond of children. No, I simply wish to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
Mr. Worthing, you have not yet been christened.
I don't remember anything about it, but I can't say I have. Unless you think I'm too old now.
Oh, no, not at all. The immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Ah, yes, immersion. It's all that is necessary, or I deem advisable. At what time would you like this ceremony to take place?
I might trot over around 5, if that suits you.
Oh, perfectly, perfectly. Now, I must not intrude on this house of sorrow any longer. However, I would advise you to not be too bowed down by grief, for what may seem bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This blessing seems very obvious.
Oh, Uncle Jack, you're back. But what horrid clothes you've got on, do go and change.
My child, have you not heard the most horrible of news? Why, your Uncle Jack here was just mentioning
Uncle
that.
Jack, what seems to be the matter? You look as though you've got a toothache. Do I have a surprise for you? Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Ernest! You arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
This is the most wonderful of news.
His sudden return seems peculiarly distressing to me.
My brother Ernest is in the dining room. I don't know what any of this means. It's perfectly absurd. Good heavens.
Brother, I have come to tell you that I am terribly sorry for all the trouble I've caused, and I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand now, are you?
Nothing will entice me to take his hand. I think his being here is perfectly inexcusable. He knows very well why.
There's some good in everyone, Uncle Jack. Ernest here has been telling me about his old friend, Mr. Bunbury, who he goes to visit so often.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me? Oh well, this is the last time I ever do it.
It's pleasant, isn't enough to see such a perfect reconciliation between these two brothers. I think we might leave them two alone to catch up and whatnot.
That sounds like a great idea. Cecily, you will come with us.
You young scoundrel, Alfie! You must get out of here at once.
I put Mr. Worthing's his things in the room next to yours, sir.
What?
Mr. Ernest Longage, sir. Miriam put it into a room next to yours, and I was helping Lane unpack it and ready a plate for him to join for dinner.
His luggage? Dinner?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket. He's staying for the weekend.
We're having roasted beef, fingering potatoes, fresh peas, and tomatoes from the garden.
It sounds absolutely splendid, sir.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Ernest here has been called back to town. Jane, that will not be necessary, though I'm sure you can find someone to use for the extras. Lane, I am sorry, but there will be no dinner.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to hear it, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back into town at all. Merriman Jane!
Yes, sir.
Please, leave my stuff in my room, and thank you for arranging my luggage. Lane, see that snacks are arranged for Jack and myself.
Yes, sir.
Take care, gentlemen.
Right away, sir.
Anyway, Cecily...
You are not to speak of Miss Cardew like that.
Well, I think your clothes are rather distasteful. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It is perfectly childish to be mourning for someone who is staying in your house as a guest.
You are certainly not staying here as a guest. You have got to be gone by the 4 or 5 train.
Well, why would I leave as long as you are in mourning? It would be most unfriendly of me to do so. If I were in mourning, you would hopefully say, it would be most unkind if you didn't.
Fine. Will you leave if I go change my clothes?
I suppose, but only if you don't take too long. I have never seen someone take so long to produce such little result. But overall, it has been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and I am staying.
Oh, I merely came back to water the flowers. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me. He's sending me away.
Then we must part.
I am afraid so. It will be a very painful parting.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I don't offend if I state quite openly and frankly that to me, you seem to be the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
You really keep one of those? I'd give anything to see it. May I?
Oh, no. You see, it's simply a very young girl's thoughts and impressions, constantly meant for publication. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. You can go on. I've reached absolute perfection. I'm quite ready for more.
Cecily, ever since I first laid eyes on your wonderful and radiant beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
The dog cart is still waiting at the door, sir.
Tell to come back next week at the same hour.
Jack won't like that you're staying on until then.
I don't care about Uncle Jack. I don't care about anyone in the whole world but you, Cecily. I love you. Will you marry me?
Oh, you silly boy, of course! Why, you see, in my mind, we've been engaged for months.
Months. But how did we become engaged?
Oh, you see, on the 14th of February, after struggle between rejecting your many proposals, I finally said yes to a beautiful gold ring, which I suppose just forgot. You see, it's all right here.
Ah, but did we ever break off our engagement?
Oh, you silly boy, of course. Why, on the 20th of March. You see, right here. I'm afraid I had to break off my engagement with Ernest. I fear it was for the best. The weather still continues to be charming.
But why on earth did you break it off? What had I done wrong? I had done nothing wrong at all. Cecily, I am rather hurt by you breaking off our engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
It wouldn't have been a real serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. Besides, I forgave you before the week was out.
What a brilliant angel you are, Cecily. You won't bring it up again, right?
Oh, you silly boy, of course not. Now that I've actually met you, you see, it's always been a girlish dream of mine to marry a man by the name of Earnest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence.
But, my dear, you don't mean to say that you could not marry me if I went by some other name.
But what name?
Oh, any name you'd like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name Algernon. I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I'm afraid I should not be able to give you my undivided attention if your name were Algernon.
Your priest here, I suppose, is thoroughly experienced in the rites and ceremonials of the church. He could christen me, perhaps, so that we may be properly married and whatnot.
Oh, yes, Dr. Chasuble.
Lay, where are you, lay?
Oh, I like that silly boy so much. His hair is excellent. I must copy his proposal into my diary at once.
Miss Fairfax has just called in.
Oh, tell the lady to come down here, and you can bring tea, cake, and butter.
Miss Fairfax?
Hello, I'm Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. First impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me after knowing each other for such a short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
Of course,
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
if you wish.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You haven't heard of Papa, I suppose? 'Tis no matter. Politics, banking, and talk about old men bore me. You're here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh, yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, strange to me he never mentioned that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I'm bound to state that now that I know that you're Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you were a little younger than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Pray do. If your woman has something unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, Cecily, to speak with perfect candor, I wish you were 4 or 42. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He's the very soul of truth and honor. But even men of the noblest moral character are extremely susceptible to the physical charms of others.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes?
But it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It's his brother, his elder brother.
He never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm afraid they haven't been on good terms for a while now.
Now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you've lifted a load from my mind. It's growing anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. Jack is my guardian. Always has been. In fact, dearest Gwendolyn, I shouldn't keep this a secret from you any longer. Our little country newspaper is sure to release the news within the next week. But Ernest and I are engaged to be married!
My darling Cecily, I think there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the city's Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid you must be under some miscommunication, dearest Gwendolyn. See, Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you. But I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I could tell you, dearest Gwendolyn, if it's caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you yesterday, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, with a firm hand.
Are you suggesting, Miss Fairfax, that I've entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is not the time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm glad to say I've never seen a spade. It is obvious our social spheres are widely different.
Shall I lay the tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. Anybody who is anybody does.
Oh, agricultural depression, is it? I hear many people from the city get it. Feels like death. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar's not fashionable anymore.
Cake? Bread or butter?
Bread and butter, please.
Merriman, can you hand this to Miss Fairfax, please?
Here you are, Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and although I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Card, you may go too far.
To save my innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other woman, there are no lengths at which I would not go.
From the moment I met you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. My first impressions of people are invariably right. Ernest!
Gwendolyn
A
Bell.
moment! May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
Miss Cardew? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, dearest Gwendolyn. You see, the gentleman who's now his arm around you is my guardian, Mr. Jack Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack. Why, hello, here's Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, please. Ernest is be married to this young lady.
To what young? Good heavens! Gwendolyn? No, a cousin on my mother's side.
Oh, thank you.
Well, there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who's now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief. Oh. Your name is Algernon.
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really Jack?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But sadly, my name is Jack.
Great deception has its practice on both of us, dearest Gwendolyn.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet, wronged Gwendolyn.
Mr. Burley, there's just one question. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us where we know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life I've been reduced to such a painful position. And unfortunately, I have very little experience in truth-telling. I have no brother named Earnest. I have no brother at all.
No brother at all.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
This isn't a very pleasant position for a young girl to be in. Now, is it?
I need some space. Let us go on a walk. There will hardly venture for us there.
Certainly not.
I suppose this ghastly state of things is what you would call bun burying, I suppose.
Yes, and what a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I have ever had in my entire life.
Well, you have no right whatsoever to Bunbury here.
Tell him, Lane.
Well, sir, one has the right to Bunbury anywhere one wishes. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious Bunburyist? Good heavens. And as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say that your taking in such a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is perfectly inexcusable. To say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
Well, I can see no possible defense for you deceiving a brilliant, charming, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
All I wanted to do was marry Gwendolyn. I love her.
Well, all I want to do is marry Cecily. I adore her.
How can you sit there, call me eating muffins when we are in this horrible situation I can't make out? You seem to be perfectly heartless. Lane, get these muffins out of here.
Lane! Now is the perfect time for muffins. You must stay.
I say, it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under these circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. When I am sad at this moment, I will eat. I also happen to like muffins.
Well, that is no reason you should eat them all in that greedy way.
I wish you would have tea cake. I like the tea cake less.
Good heavens, I suppose one may eat his own muffins in his own garden. Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go.
I haven't even had dinner yet. I don't go without dinner. No one does. It's absurd. Only vegetarians and people like that do. Besides, I have made an appointment with Dr. Trostable to be christened at 4:06 under the name of Earnest.
Well, I have made appointments to be christened with Dr. Tossable at 5:30, and I will naturally take the name of Earnest. Besides, I have the perfect right to do so. There is nothing that says I've been christened before by anybody. You have been christened already.
But I haven't been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the point.
Jack, you are at it again with the muffins. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 3 left.
Algernon, I've already told you I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't finished my tea yet. Besides, there are only more things. Go on. I'm
Explain!
Sirs, I was thinking perhaps you two should consider.
Now's not the time. Get out.
I'll see if they can make another batch, sir.
The fact that they did not follow us at once, as anyone else would have done, seems to me to show they have some sense of shame left.
They've been stuffing their faces with muffins. That look like repentance.
It is repentance, my lady.
They don't seem to notice us at all.
No, they know. They know they're already in the thick of things.
That, are they looking this way? Yes, they're looking at us. What audacity!
They finally be turning this way?
Yes, they're approaching.
How very forward of them. Let us preserve a dignified silence. We will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I've something very particular to ask. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer the following question for me. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I may have the opportunity of meeting you.
That seems like a very satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't, but does not take away from the
grave importance, style, not sincerity is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending you have a brother? Was it in order that you may have the opportunity of coming up to visit me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. Now's not the time for German skepticism. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. Nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly. Your Christian names are still an inseparable barrier.
Our Christian names, but I am to be Christian this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, are you ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd it is to talk about the equality of sexes. Where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
The enormous of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing about.
Darling!
Darling!
Lady Bracknell,
Good heavens!
What does this mean?
Merely that I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Come over here. Sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay and physical weakness. Sir, after our discussion, I had a talk with my husband about this whole predicament, and I must say, her father is very upset about the situation. In fact, I was intended to a lecture that was more or less a university extension on the income of lack of thought and obscure propositions. I do not propose to undeceive him. Indeed, I have never deceived him on any matter pertaining to our family, as I would consider it so wrong, so very wrong indeed. But I'm sure that you understand very clearly that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately. On this point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I'm engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards Algernon. Algernon?
Yes, Augusta.
May I ask if it is in this house that your dear invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides? Why are you here?
No, Bunbury isn't here at the present moment. He doesn't live here. In fact, Bunbury is dead. The physicians, they could not save him.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? I was not aware that he was being treated by physicians. If so, he is well punished for his morbidity and carelessness. Well, he must have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians, and I'm glad he did. He seemed to care not for any advice, certainly not my advice, nor yours, Algy. He lived without heeding warning. But now that we have gotten rid of this Mr. Bunbury, may I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner? Algernon, why are you holding this young woman's hand?
That is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I am engaged to Cecily.
I beg your pardon. Lady Bracknell, Ernest and I, Algernon and I, are engaged to be married. I do not know if there's anything peculiarly exciting in the air in this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the amount of engagements that go down seems to me considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down. I'm sure that some inquiry on my part would not be out of place, Mr. Worthing. I am sure that he would agree. Who is this Miss Cardew?
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Berkshire, NV.
That does sound satisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I must ask if this Miss Cardew has any small amount of fortune.
Only around £130,000 in the funds.
£130,000! And in the funds! Well, this Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that we get a good look at her. Few girls of the present age have any of the really solid qualities, or any of the qualities that last and improve with time. Come over here, dear. Pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looks almost as if nature might have left it. But we can soon alter all that. Kindly turn round, sweet child. No, the side view is what I want. Yes, just as I had predicted. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points in our society today are its want of principle and its want of profile. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way that the chin is worn. Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, prettiest, dearest girl in the whole world. And I don't care about the social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only the people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, when I first married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of my own, but never for a moment did I think of letting that stand in my way. You are a proper lady, and I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Augusta.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell! You may address me as Aunt Augusta for the future, sweet child. Oh, thank you, Aunt Augusta. The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this marriage is completely unacceptable. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent. The consent I absolutely refuse to give.
Upon what grounds, might I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may say almost ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more could one possibly desire?
It pains me to speak frankly to you about your nephew. However, I do not approve of his moral character. In fact, I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew, Algernon? Impossible.
I fear there can be no possible doubt in the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London, he obtained admission to my house under the false pretense of being my brother. He then succeeded in the course of pursuing my ward under these false precepts. He stayed for tea and devoured every single muffin.
We made more! We made fresh muffins. Would anyone like some?
Not now.
And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he knew perfectly well from the start, I don't have a brother. I never had a brother, and I don't intend to have a brother. I told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after some very careful consideration, I have decided to entirely overlook my nephew's conduct.
That is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. However, I do not give my consent.
Come over here, sweet child. How old are you, dear?
Well, I'm really only 20, but I always admit to being 22 when I go to evening parties.
And you are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no women should ever be so accurate about their age. It looks so calculating. 20. 20 would have been into 22 at evening parties. Well, it will not be very long before you are 25, and age totally free of any restraints. So I don't think that your guardian's consent is of any importance at all.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you again, but I feel it fair only to inform you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew is not legal of age until she is 30.
Well, that does not seem to me to be a grave objection. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have, on their own accord, remained 30, even 35 for many years. Lady Dumbleton is a case in point. To my own knowledge, she has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40, which was many years ago now. So I don't see any reason why our dear Cecily should not be even more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is now. And by then, there will be a large accumulation of money.
Algernon, could you wait with me until I was 30, maybe 35?
Of course I could. You know I could.
Yes, I know, but I'm afraid that I couldn't wait. I hate waiting, for anyone, for even 5 minutes. It makes me rather cross. I'm not very punctual myself, I know, but I do admire punctuality in others. But I'm afraid waiting, even for us to be married, is, well, quite out of the question.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she could not possibly wait until she is 35, a remark which I am bound to state seems to show a somewhat impatient nature, I would ask of you to reconsider your decision.
But Lady Bracknell, the decision is entirely within your hands. As soon as you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will gladly allow for your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must understand that what you propose is entirely out of the question.
That a passionate celibacy is all that any of us are looking forward to.
That is not the destiny that I propose for Gwendolyn. Algernon, of course, can decide for himself. Come, Gwenny, we've missed up these 2 trains already. Your father wants you home, and I cannot bear to stand here arguing nonsense.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christenings, sir? Isn't that a bit premature?
Both these gentlemen have requested to be christened at once.
At their age? The
understand then that there are to be no christenings this afternoon?
I don't think that as things are now, it would be practical for either of us, Dr. Tussle.
Well, I'm grieved to hear such sentiment from you, Mr. Worthing. Now, I must not stay here waiting nothing. I have been informed that Miss Prism is waiting for me in the church office, and I must go to her at once.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, I am on my way to see her. She was waiting for me regarding church stuff and whatnot.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. Is this Miss Prism you mentioned a lady of repellent aspect, remotely associated with education?
She is the most cultivated woman, the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're suggesting. I am a celibate, madam.
Actually, I believe she's just outside the garden.
Doctor, I have been waiting for you in the vestry for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Where is that baby? 28 years ago, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Avenue, in charge of a bassinet that contains a little baby boy. You never returned. After the very careful investigations of the Metropolitan Police, that bassinet was rediscovered at midnight. Inside, it contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of a more than usually revolting sentimental nature. But the baby was not there. Where did you put that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mention, I had prepared as usual to take the baby out of its perambulator. I also had with me a somewhat old handbag in which I had intended to place a work of fiction relating to my life. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I will never forgive myself, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you dispose of the handbag?
One of the larger cloakrooms of the larger railway stations in London.
Which railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
Wait! I must go to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait for me.
You're not too long, I'll wait for you all my life.
Lady Bracknell, what do you think this means?
I dare not guess, Dr. Trustable.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
That noise is incredibly unpleasant. It sounds almost as if you were having an argument. I despise arguments of any kind. They are always vulgar and often convincing.
It has stopped now.
Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It does seem to be mine. Yes, here's the injury received through the upsetting of a Gower Street bus in earlier days. Here is the sling on the lining, an incident because of the explosion of a hot beverage, an incident in Leamington. And here, on the lock, are my initials. I had them placed there, fear of being stolen or lost. Thank you, Mr. Worthing. I am delighted to have it so suddenly returned to me.
Miss Prism, more is returned to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes, mother.
Mr. Worthing! I am unmarried, and I am certainly not your mother.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but will you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my husband's cousin, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon's older half-cousin. Ugh, the horrible side. I'm so glad to be rid of them. My side is by far the more respectable.
I am Algernon's elder cousin. Then I am almost brother after all. I knew I had a brother. Well, sort of. Algernon, you young scoundrel. You would much treat me with more respect in the future. You have hardly treated me like an elder cousin all your life.
My own! What own are you? Are you my cousin too? What is your Christian name now that you are someone else?
Good heavens, I nearly forgot about that part. Well, if I'm Algernon's cousin, not on your side, then I suppose we aren't related at all.
Splendid, how perfectly splendid.
Now, the question must be cleared up at once. Answer Gusto. A moment. When Lady Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could afford, including christening, was lavished upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That settles it. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the present moment recall what the general's Christian name was, though I have no doubt that he had one. He was eccentric, but only in later years. I never really talked to the other side.
Algernon, can't you recollect what your uncle's Christian name was?
My dear fellow, we were not on speaking terms. Besides, he died before I was a year old.
His name would be in the army list of the period, I suppose. Antigusta?
Yes, I have no doubt his name would appear in any military directory.
The army records of the last 40 years are here. These records should have been my constant studies. Lieutenant, 1840. Macum, Macbum, Magley. What ghastly names these people have. Magby, Migsby, Mobbs, Humphrey. Lieutenant, 1840. Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel, Captain, General, 1869. Christian names, Earnest Jack.
In 9, 10, 11, and 12 without having to get booted to any other schools or anything. And I just want them to know here, instead of their graduation, because this room is their home at the school, how important you guys are to me. I'm so proud of you. You will never, ever know. So it'll be very hard to see them go. But it makes it worse. But my 9, 10s, and 11s up here, everybody else, we have lots of years to go, and this was amazing, and it's only going to get better next year. I'm so proud of all of you. Please come back and see our musical next year with hopefully